U.S. President Donald Trump has announced that an international stabilization force for Gaza would be deployed very soon as part of his peace plan. The U.S. has drafted a UN Security Council resolution authorizing a 2-year mandate for transitional governance in Gaza and the ISF, which could use all necessary measures to fulfill its mission. Russia says it wants the United States to clarify recent remarks by U.S. President Donald Trump about the possible resumption of nuclear testing. Trump last week ordered U.S. military to immediately restart the process for nuclear testing after a halt of 33 years. Hundreds of flights in the U.S. have been cancelled after airlines were asked to cut air traffic amid the ongoing government shutdown. Speaking on this, U.S. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy has said that the decision to cut the number of flights is about safety, not politics. Tesla boss Elon Musk has had a record-breaking pay package that could be worth nearly $1 trillion. Approved by the shareholders, the scale of the potential payout has drawn criticism, but the Tesla board argued that Musk might leave the company if it was not approved. European Union Naval Force has said that it has successfully liberated Hellas Aphrodite that was boarded by the pirates early yesterday off the coast of Somalia. As per reports, all 24 crew members are safe and no injuries have been reported. Twin explosions rocked a mosque in Jakarta, Indonesia during Friday prayers, injuring 55 people, with police identifying a 17-year-old student as the suspected perpetrator. National Police Chief Listio Sigit Prabowo said an investigation is underway into the student's motive and background of the suspect. The death toll from Typhoon Kalmaegi in the Philippines has risen to 188 people. With most fatalities reported in Cebu Island, authorities said 135 people remain missing and 96 injured, though the figures are still being verified. The United States and Ukraine have pledged to strengthen energy cooperation amid ongoing Russian attacks on Ukrainian energy infrastructure. U.S. Energy Secretary Chris Wright and Ukrainian Energy Minister Svitlana Grinchuk made the commitment during the talks in Athens. Wright has emphasized Washington's dedication to providing fuel, spare parts. Grinchuk, in turn, highlighted the significant damage caused by Russian strikes on gas facilities. Let's listen into what both of them has said. The Ukrainian states and Ukraine have pledged to strengthen energy cooperation amid ongoing Russian attacks on Ukraine's energy infrastructure.
We are completely aligned in what we need to do. This is energy is life. The lack of affordable energy is despair and death, and we need to fight everything we can to bring energy to Ukraine. And President Trump, as you've all heard so many times, his single biggest goal is to better people's lives and to save people's lives. Peace has been a massive agenda for him. He has pushed all of us in the administration all in to see what we can do to get energy, to get infrastructure, to get repair parts to Ukraine. And then on the other side, what are the most effective measures we can do to starve the Russian war?
But in September, Russia restarted the massive attacks against the gas infrastructure, and unfortunately, we lost a lot. Yes, we tried to repair, but we all understand that Russia will continue. And for us, the additional gas import, the additional natural gas resources, it could be critical.
Now for this discussion, we welcome David K. Johnston. He's an American author, joins us live from New York. Thank you very much, David, for joining us again. Good to see you. David, now looking at this, how might President Trump's approach to U.S.-Ukraine energy cooperation differ or is changing from given his past skepticism towards foreign aid?
Well, Donald is very mercurial. It's one of the things I've tried to get people to understand in the 37 years I've known and written about Donald. So what we've done today may not be what we do even this afternoon. And you have to read everything about this in that term. On the other hand, it's very clear that Trump has come to realize that Vladimir Putin is not his friend on ending the war, has no interest in ending the war, and that if he's going to not have egg all over his face about this, he's got to help the Ukrainians. And Russia is adopting new military tactics, some of them originated by the Ukrainians, about ways to attack energy supplies. And in the modern world, energy is in good part what determines how you can prosecute a war.
And could Trump's America First energy agenda reshape U.S. commitments to Europe's energy security amid the war in Ukraine? And what role would a Trump administration likely play in balancing support for Ukraine with efforts to rebuild its relations with Russia, particularly with President Putin, in terms of President Trump's kind of admiring relations with him?
Well, Western Europe, that's yet to be seen. But without a loss to Putin, Europe faces nothing but continued expansionist with military force by the Kremlin.
Right. Thank you very much, David K. Johnston, for sharing that insight. Please stay with us as we stay on this region now. German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius has suggested that drone sightings over Belgium could be related to discussions about the use of frozen Russian assets. Belgium holds 183 billion euros in Russian assets, which constitutes the majority of all Russian state assets in the EU. Earlier, in a sharp speech, Pistorius also warned that Russia continues to seek to sow doubt, divide, and influence elections. And he also said that Russia will not back down from its attempts to forcibly redraw borders. Last month, EU leaders failed to agree on a 140 billion euros reparations loan for Ukraine, which was to be secured by frozen Russian assets. On that note, let's listen into what German Defense Minister has said.
Die sehen wir alle, sehen auch die Belgier so. Das ist eine Maßnahme, die der Verunsicherung dienen soll, der Angstmache in Belgien, wagt es bloß nicht an die Assets zu gehen. Das kann man gar nicht anders interpretieren.
Now we go back to David K. Johnston. He's an American author, joins us live from New York. Thank you very much, David, for staying with us. Now looking at this, how would Trump's transactional view, as you mentioned in earlier discussion as well, of these alliances affect coordination within European partners on issues such as sanctions and asset seizures?
Well, in the past, Trump has opposed, or his administration at least, has opposed the idea of using Russian assets in Europe to help finance the war for Ukraine. And as you pointed out, there's a lot of money that's there, close to $200 billion. The Europeans would much prefer to spend Russia's money to resist Russia than to spend their own money. I think that the German Defense Minister Pistorius was very clear in his comments as I read the translation. He says there is no explanation for the drone flights over Belgium that are posing somewhat of a threat to aviation security, but an effort by the Russians to intimidate and try to persuade the Europeans not to use the frozen Russian assets to help Ukraine. That's going to involve a lot of serious discussion by both diplomatic and military people about how far do you poke the bear. If you do, in fact, drain those Russian accounts and use them to help the Ukrainians, will that provoke some kind of aggressive action against the rest of NATO or selected countries in NATO, notably Belgium? So this, I suspect, will be the subject of a lot of very intense and sophisticated discussion about how to deal with this. And all of this goes back to the mistake Joe Biden made in the fall of 2021, before the invasion, when he should have said to, I'm sorry, in the fall of 2020, when he should have said to the Kremlin, put one foot inside Ukraine and you will be met with ferocious opposition from the Ukrainians, who we will fully support. Instead, he took an incrementalist approach because he's at heart a diplomat, and that did not work. Appeasement doesn't work.
Yes, indeed. With that, I would like to thank David K. Johnston for joining us and sharing that insight throughout our news. Thank you very much. Now we move on to our next news. The United Nations has issued a stark warning over signs of escalating fighting in Sudan's Kordofan region, urging an immediate end to the conflict that has devastated the country for over a year. The alert has come after the Paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, or RSF, claimed that they had agreed to a humanitarian truce proposed by mediators, even as reports emerged of new troop movements towards Kordofan and the capital, Khartoum. UN Human Rights Chief Volker Turk has said that civilians remain trapped in this recently captured city of Al-Fashar, where he warned of continuing atrocities, including executions, sexual violence, and ethnic targeting. He said casualties and destructions were mounting in Kordofan, with clear preparations for intensified hostilities. Turk has urged countries to hold military support for warring parties and called for bold and urgent action to end the bloodshed. The fall of Al-Fashar last month gave the RSF control over all 5 Darfur state capitals, deepening fears that Sudan could split along an east-west divide. Now for this discussion, we welcome Adrian Calamel. He's a terror scholar, joins us live from New York. Thank you very much, Adrian, for joining us. Good to see you. Adrian, how do these tactics of RSF and territorial ambitions align with patterns seen in other paramilitary insurgent movements across Africa?
Well, it's good to see you again, Asuma, and thanks for having me on the show. Good evening to all your viewers. The RSF, I would like to back up a little bit, because a lot of the UN's attention is on the RSF, which is the Raid Support Forces, which was once part of the Sudanese armed forces. These two groups were supposed to basically put down their arms after they pushed aside a military dictatorship, okay? Pushed aside a military dictatorship towards a civilian rule. Then it became an issue where RSF was kind of pushed to the side. Sudanese armed forces really wanted to capture the entire country. Now, if you want to understand the Sudanese armed forces, they are heavily entrenched with Muslim Brotherhood. All right, this is a Islamist group. The RSF generally, yes, both sides, atrocities on both sides. The RSF has been acting like a paramilitary group. They've been partners with the Sudanese armed forces for years. When we hear about the massacres in Darfur and South Sudan that took place about a decade ago, the RSF and the Sudanese armed forces were part of it. The RSF, like when we hear about the Janjaweed and these groups, that's part of the RSF. So we see these tactics. We see, sexual violence being used, rape as a tactic. We're seeing, supposedly yesterday, mass graves. Now, with the RSF, my biggest concern with them is that when the UN is starting to put a target on their back, this becomes a problem. They're not looking at the other side of the issue, which is Sudanese armed forces, which has committed just as many atrocities, maybe more, and has a clear agenda, and that is a military dictatorship under Muslim Brotherhood rule, which the Sudanese people tried to throw off in 2019. They wanted to get rid of this type of relationship, and they were supposed to have free elections in 2023, and then immediately they got civil war instead. And now the world is finally paying attention. you have 150,000 people dead. This is guaranteed, 150,000, possibly more. And 12 million people, get that, 12 million people displaced. That's Syria level. And now the UN is just deciding to focus on this, a real genocide. You know, this should have been a topic 2 years ago. Unfortunately, it's now just becoming one. And I think the UN needs to look at this with clear eyes.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Adrian, for shedding the light on the history and all of what's happening with this situation now. Please stay with us as we come back to you for our next discussion as well. Now we move on to Indonesia. Dozens of people were injured earlier in the day after 2 explosions struck a mosque during prayers in Indonesia's capital city of Jakarta. The incident occurred inside a school complex in the Kelapa Gading area, with 55 people reportedly admitted to hospitals having minor to serious burns. Local authorities have identified a 17-year-old student at the adjacent school as the suspected perpetrator. He is currently undergoing surgery while police investigate his background and possible motives. Now, the mosque, the school complex are located on Navy-owned land in a crowded area as of now. Police have secured the site as a crime scene with armored vehicles, emergency services, and forensic teams examining the evidence. Initial reports say the damage to the mosque structure appears minor. Let's listen in to a few school students who witnessed the explosions.
Saya langsung panik, kan adik saya juga sekolah di sana. Dicari-cari, di sekolah nggak ada kamar, ditelepon nggak bisa. Akhirnya ditelepon sama wali kelasnya, udah ada di UGD rumah sakit. Pertama tuh bunyi dengung terus gak lama tiba-tiba meledak. Dari saya nggak lihat jelas soalnya saya begini. Terus ada ledakan gitu di sekitar tengah-tengah. Ledakannya 2 kali atau? Saya di tempat sekali doang. Teman-teman saya banyak yang luka. Kebetulan ada di sini ada junior saya juga yang terkena luka-luka. Terus pokoknya teman-teman saya lumayan banyak ya.
Now we move on to Asia. Tensions along the Afghanistan-Pakistan border have escalated as fresh clashes in Spin Boldak, Afghanistan has left at least 5 people dead and several homes damaged. Families in the region are grieving while villagers on both sides of their border, including those in Pakistan's Chaman, are calling for peace and an end to the violence. People are urging both governments to take action and stand with the people. Let's listen into what they said.
تقریبا د مازدګر د جماعت ما بعد موږ چې شواسلو ټکان سول چې موږ د باندې مارکیټ د باندې وته دوه واره به تر ازمن مټر دی ولاړو نو یو دم وام بومشتي پر مارکیټ کې نو چې شمسان سمات کړو چې نور تخریبات رسول ول اعلان کې د تجارتي ځای دی دا حکومتي ځای نه د حکومتي خلک وسیله تجارتي ځای دی او دلته ډېر تخریبات تقریبا ادارې ما کړی او د نور تخریبات رسول ول
نو په دې د بره مرغه نو 3 کسان شهیدان لرو 2 ټپیان لرو سخت ټپیان هغه په پښو کې زخمیان دي او بیا دلته څنګه ته بل هم ساید کورنۍ کې غم یو زنانه شهیده لرو بل زنانه د کور مخ ته شهیده لرو بل د ککړان منډي مخ ته شهیدان لرو
زما نوم چې دی مې بلادي موږ د کلی اوسېدونکي پرون چې ولو ډېر موږ کرکټ دلته کاوه اختاولو ډېر بد حال جوړ شو بارډر خواڅه ټکان وشو زموږ کورونه چې بارډر ته ډېر نږدې دي په دا خطر ودی ته وایي چې د بارډر خواڅه د ټکان چې دا کوچنی ټاکوس زموږ په کورو کې مشکل موږ دا داسې ګزارش کوو چې موږ ته هغه وکړي دا کورنۍ او دا کلي ته یې څه پام وکړي دلته ماشومان شته کوچنیان شته دې ته یې څه هغه وکړي نظر ورته واچي خپل تصویر ورته وکړي.
Now for this discussion, we welcome back Adrian Calamel. He's a terror scholar, joins us live from New York. Thank you very much, Adrian, for staying with us. Now looking at this Afghanistan and Pakistan border situation, could this current violence create openings for extremist groups to exploit border instability there, and what do you think, what steps can Kabul and Islamabad take to balance border security with humanitarian concerns in communities?
Yeah, I think that's part of the problem. We have extremist groups, the Taliban, fueling these exchanges on either side. We look at the American. I mean, I thought under the Trump administration they would cut down this policy of sending multi-million-dollar packages every month to the Taliban in Afghanistan under the guise that it is humanitarian aid. At some point, the Taliban's got to manage that country, and at some point, the Trump administration or whatever U.S. administration needs to understand that that aid is fungible and it's turned into either money or weapons. And border instability works for both Pakistan and the Taliban. Now that you'll also, on the other side, you'll have Pakistan claiming, we can't manage the TTP. We've got India on the other side. We've got to manage them. So they're continuing to play the beggar to the Trump administration and saying, give us this, give us that. We need to handle this situation. So they create tensions on either border, either the India border or the Afghan border. On the India border, they manufacture it. On the Afghan border, it's, let's remember who created the Taliban in Afghanistan. It was the ISI. It was the Pakistani ISI. And so we are continuing to funnel money, the Americans, into both sides of this conflict on that border. I would cut off both, if I was president, packages to Afghanistan and Pakistan unless they were monitored and we were the one distributing the aid or some mechanism that was fully vetted. Right now, there's no checks and balances, so there's the problem. You've got two, on that border, you have a bunch of bad actors that have no problem just shooting off against each other. If some innocent people get caught in the crosshairs, it serves their long-term interest because the millions of dollars are still going to come into their coffers.
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much, Adrian Calamel, for joining us and sharing that insight as a terror scholar from New York. That's all we have time for.